Okay, so I guess we're going to see.
Okay. Welcome to the Council on Recovery's Conversations on Addiction, Recovery, and Family, from our living room to yours. In a period filled with uncertainty, the Council invites you into weekly conversations about how we can respond. Are you worried about your own health, safety, and future, or that of someone you love? Are you worried, anxious, uncertain about all the things happening in our world? Is your own thinking getting in the way of how you manage all of the uncertainty? You are not alone. The Council is here to support you. Leading our conversation this week is Choices Counselor Patrick Hagler, LMFT LCDC. Please note that we hope to be able to field questions using the chat feature and welcome your thoughts, comments, and feedback. This is being recorded and will be uploaded to the Council on Recovery's website. Now, if you'll please join Patrick in his living room.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm actually in my kitchen because I'm a little bit afraid of little people running in and out of the house if I use the living room. So we are in my kitchen, and so that's why I have this map on the wall we use for fun games with the kids. So thank you all for joining. Like I said, we had a lot of people registering. Right now it's the 4 of us. So we'll see as we go along if people join. And we'll just go with it. So the way that I like to do these webinars is sort of more of an interactive thing. Ideally, you know, it's when we have a lot of people, it can be fun to have a lot of people jumping in, you know, either verbally or through the chat. The chat's was pretty fun too. So please feel free to jump in on the chat, Debbie or Anna Maria, if you have anything to that you want to talk about. So the topic today is navigating the gray in uncertain times, and the subject matter for this talk really sort of changed over the last week or so compared to what I had originally wanted to talk about. Originally, my subject matter was more geared towards COVID and family and schedules and the summertime and that sort of thing. And I think that is important. But I think what's happened in the last week or so in Minneapolis has shifted my thinking a little bit and the subject. So I opened it up a little bit more broadly instead of speaking specifically about schedules and things like that. I've opened it up to my presentation here. To learning to live with uncertainty, because that's the thing that has been coming up a lot recently for me and my clients. And I should say off the top, I didn't introduce myself. My name is Patrick Hagler. I'm a Choices Counselor for the Council on Recovery and full-time embedded counselor at St. Thomas, where I do a program called the Choices Program. But I am employed by the council, and I am actually going to be leaving the council in 2 weeks. I'm going over to Memorial Hermann to work at the Prevention and Recovery Center in their pain recovery program. So this is actually my last webinar for the council, and so I'm excited to have the opportunity to do it. So back to let me get my chat up here, guys. can't see my chat. So anyways, living with uncertainty. So that has become really the topic for me because you know, not only do we have the COVID stuff and all in managing our lives and how everyone's lives have been kind of turned upside down with that, and then to now, you know, with the recent sort of rioting and things that are going on with the George Floyd incident, that people are really nervous. So we are going to be talking about how to manage kind of ourselves despite all of these things that are going on, and who knows what's going to come next, and we just don't know. So how do we carry on and continue to you know, manage our lives in a way that's you know, manageable and, you know, hopefully you know, satisfying and happy. So that's what we're going to be discussing today. So, you know, when I was thinking about putting this together, you know, I think about how my days go and how things can be very, very important. Everything is just so important, and you know, I can create anxiety around all kinds of different things that are happening today. But when I really look back on the past, what was June 2nd? We're June 2nd, 2020. You know, what was your day like on June 2nd, 2019? Or what was your day like last Tuesday? When I try to look back on those things, I have no idea. I can't remember. And so I know that June 2nd, 2020, today, is going to end up being just another one of those days in my life that has come and gone, and is part of my history, that a week or 2 weeks from now, it won't even be in my frame of reference. So I like to think about that because you know, it helps me to think about, you know, honoring. I honor everything I do, but I don't have to put so much importance on it that it you know, doesn't allow me to enjoy what I'm doing. So and the next point is about reality, right? So our reality right now is really, really unusual with what's going on with those two things that I talked about, what's going on with our government, how our government is handling things. It's just really, it's a really bizarre time. And I certainly have opinions and thoughts about all of it. And it is as it is. Reality is as it is. So I don't need to carry around my own little personal version or story about this reality that only exists in my mind. So I could create all kinds of scenarios about the things that are going on in the world today and how it's overwhelming me, how it's creating all kinds of fear and frustration and all kinds of things about how it's affecting my life. And but it still is as it is. So the practice that I'm going to be talking about today is really awareness. It's awareness of where am I investing my energy? Hold on, guys. Let me see here. So so the practice is where am I investing my energy? Am I putting my energy into worrying about what's happening? Am I putting my energy into being angry, resentful, you know, any number of those things? If I'm putting my energy into that, then I'm really wasting my resources, because being angry and being mad and all of those things, although very justifiable, they aren't doing anything to change my day today. So what can I do today to take action? If I am angry about something, what can I do to take action to feel better about that? The thing that I think most of us do pretty frequently when we don't like something is to really hold on to the belief that I don't like it. It's bothersome. It's not right. And so The way that so I'm putting energy into that. So the way that manifests for most people is complaining, right? So and I'll complain to myself internally. I'll complain to other people about what I don't like, how this isn't going my way. But really, complaining doesn't do anything. So I think we have this idea that somehow if I don't like something long enough or fervent enough, long enough, that it's actually going to have an effect on the situation, and it doesn't. It has an effect, but it has an effect on us, which is usually a negative effect. So in the process, I'm investing energy into something that I have that it's not doing anything for me. So complaining is a total drain on our own personal resources. We have a finite amount of resources in the form of energy, ATP, to complete our tasks. And complaining about things is a waste. It's a drain on that resource, and it takes that energy away from somewhere else where you could be putting it. So let me get back to my screen share here, guys. Okay. So this is a scenario, kind of talking about what we just talked about, where we can practice kind of a perspective on the same situation. So, imagine if you can imagine that you lost all of your money. All of your money, your savings got wiped out in, the stock market, whatever. You have $5 left in your bank account. Well, we have the choice to look at that any way we want. There's one of two ways. There's a couple of ways that I'm thinking about that we could look at the situation. One way, and very understandably, would be, I've worked my whole life for this money and it's now gone. I'm ruined. It's over. I am completely ruined. Which that kind of thinking could lead someone to, maybe even ending their own life. So tragic, yes, and that is one way of looking at it. But another way of looking at it would be to say, okay, I have $5 left in my account. What can I do right now to get my $5 to $50 so that I can, get a hotel room, so that I could buy food for the night, so that I can, whatever. What action can I take right now to go from 5 to 50? And then when you get there, what action can I take to go from this to that? So it's a very different way of looking at the same situation. One is non-acceptance and sort of surrendering. And the other one is reality, as we talked about before. It is as it is. There is $5 in my account. That's, whether I like it or not, that is the fact, and that is the reality. So can I get myself into a place where I can kind of stand on my own 2 feet and then take action to better my situation? So worrying, too, this is a topic that I'm sure many of us are familiar with. I've had people tell me when I say that worrying serves no purpose, that, well, what do you mean it serves no purpose? Like, if I don't worry about my bills, if I don't worry about my responsibilities, then they're not going to get done. And so, what I would say to that is that we have to pay our bills, we have to work, we have to take care of our responsibilities, we have to take care of our family, we have to do all of those things, but we don't have to worry about those things. We just need to do them. So there's a difference between worrying and taking action. And worrying is ultimately destructive to our well-being. And again, it's a waste of energy that could be used elsewhere. So it's like complaining and worrying. It's using energy in ways that there are no results. There's no, well, there are results from worrying. You create your own anxiety and things like that, but there's no positive outcome from that. So, what I really formulated my my idea about what I was going to talk about today was on this book. I don't know if any of you all have uh, have read this book, but what's that, guys? So, anyways, Man's Search for Meaning. If you guys haven't read this book, I really, really encourage you to get it and read it. I just saw today that you can get the audiobook on YouTube for free. But it was really a powerful book for me because it's the ultimate journey of a man who had to choose his own perspective on his situation in order to survive. So I don't know if you all are familiar with Man's Search for Meaning, but it's by Viktor Frankl. He was a psychologist in Vienna during World War II, and got put into a concentration camp. And he was in Auschwitz, I think, for I don't know how long, a couple of years maybe. But as a psychologist, he had a very interesting background to examine his own interaction with himself. And essentially what, go back to sharing here, guys. So what he took from that was essentially this. Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. So he was in a situation where the Nazis took everything from him. They took his clothes, they took his food, they took his family, they took his books, they took his money. They took absolutely everything from him. But what he said was, the one thing that these people can never take from me is my ability to choose my own perspective, to choose how I perceive what's happening to me and around me. That they can never take from me. And that's ultimately what allowed him to survive in the camps. And what he found was that the people in the camps that didn't make it were the ones that were not able to get past the perspective of the horror of how human beings can do this to other human beings. They couldn't get past that, and as a result, they weren't able to make the decisions and create the perspective that they needed to have hope and to survive. So Viktor Frankl was able to say, okay, this is horrible. Obviously I don't agree with it, but this is where I'm at. So what do I need to do to survive? So right now, do I need a sip of water? Or maybe do I need a scrap of bread to survive for the night, for the day? And so he was able to think in a way that allowed him to carry on. So from that, I often hear people will say to me, well, so-and-so made me mad. Someone made me angry. So-and-so made me feel this. And what I like to tell my students is nobody can make you feel mad or sad or feel anything else. You can make yourself feel that based on some information that you are processing through your filter, and it is making you upset. But nobody can make you mad. And so there's a lot of freedom in that, in knowing that, again, I have the ability to choose how I'm going to react to whatever information is coming my way. So I really like this slide. Oops. Oops. So remember when you wanted what you currently have. I love this slide because I know, for me personally, I can remember a time when I wanted more than anything to be married and to have a family and to have a child and to be in a job that I liked. I mean, those things were like, they seemed like so far off to me at a certain time in my life. And I've achieved that now. I have those things, and so, but it's very easy to get caught up in, okay, well, what do I need now? What's next? What's the next thing I need? And so that's what I call the illusion. And the illusion is that now isn't good enough. What I have right now isn't enough. I need something else. I need more to be okay. And what that turns out, that turns out to be a cycle, kind of like a hamster wheel, where it's you think I need this next thing, I need this next thing, I need this next thing. When you get it, you're already on to the next thing. So it becomes this cycle of wanting and grasping and needing, and very little space for peace and enjoyment, because you never really get those things that you think you need. So how many times have you had the idea that, like, hey, I didn't sign up for this. I didn't sign up for any of this stuff, when I was getting into it, or having the ideas that, again, the illusion, I'll finally be okay when. I will finally be okay when I get married. I'll finally be okay when I get divorced, when I have a child, when the kids leave for college, when I get the next job, when I get the car, when I get to this, when I get to that, I'll be okay then. And that's the illusion, because really we have everything we need right now. And so, but it can be really easy to lose sight of that. So that's why I really like this slide. Remember when you wanted what you currently have. And even things like your health, for example. I mean, I don't know I'm sure you all can imagine a time when you got hurt or you got sick, and when you were hurt or sick, you thought back before you were hurt or sick, and were like, wow, I didn't appreciate my arm before I broke it, or I didn't appreciate, being able to do things when I'm bedridden and with the flu. And so we do that very often. We take things for granted that we already have. So how about, what if we were able to take that perspective and live in it? Be happy about being healthy while we have health, because there's going to be a point when we don't have it. So, I like this. When was the last time you thanked your liver for the 100,000 enzymatic reactions it just did in the last second while you were listening to me? Amazing, right? Not to mention the heart pumping the blood, and the eyes to see, the feet to carry you around. All of these things that actually work right now, but we don't pay too much attention to them. Only when they break down or they start to not work, then we say, oh wow, my liver, I'd really like to have a healthy functioning liver. So it's really living in that space where, hey, I appreciate my good health. I'm going to appreciate it because someday it's not going to last forever. So in any situation, we really have three options. And this is the way I like to formulate my decision-making process when things happen that I don't like, or I don't want, or I'm unhappy about. So really, we have three options in any situation to deal with it. And anything other than these three options, it's really, it's kind of insane. So in any situation that is displeasing to you, you have three options. Number one, change it. Do something to improve the conditions of the situation. Talk to the person in charge. Request what you need to make the situation be more to what you need. Option number one. Option number two, if you can't do anything to change it, you've done all you can, you've talked to the person in charge, nothing's changing. Option number two, then remove yourself. Remove yourself from the situation. Always an option. If you can't change it, you can't remove yourself, and I had this conversation with students a lot about school. Can't change it, you can't remove yourself, then what's left? Then the only other option left is to accept the situation as it is. So what does this actually mean, acceptance? Acceptance doesn't mean that you're going to do cartwheels down the hall because you didn't get the promotion that you were hoping to get. But what it means is that acceptance means you stop investing the negative energy into hating or disliking that situation as it is. So the situation is as it is, right? It's not ideal, but you have the awareness of when you're investing negative energy into it, then again, just like complaining and worrying, we're using our resources to affect change where we can. So it's a drain on our resources. So acceptance means that you divert that energy into not liking it, into taking action in an area where you can have some effect. And so this has been a real big one for me, the whole acceptance thing, and having the awareness of where my energy is going. And I found it was surprising to me how much energy I spend into not liking something or complaining about something or being dissatisfied with something. And so once you have that awareness, you can do something different. So the acronym I came up for this for the students when I did it was be rad when you're bothered. Rad being R for remove, A for accept, D for do something. Those are the three choices that you have, and it really simplifies things for me. So be rad when you're bothered, and then also be on high alert to complaining. Complaining is a major red flag that our unconscious kind of patterns are taking over. Our unconscious dissatisfied ego is sort of taking over us. And so it's important because now we know complaining actually doesn't serve a purpose, doesn't accomplish anything, and actually drains our resources and has a real negative effect on just our well-being, right? So complaining, if you think about complaining, when someone complains, you are making yourself a victim. So I'm going to complain about something and I'm going to be a victim of whatever the circumstance is. And that's really ultimately what complaining is. So again, something you don't like something, you have those three options. Be aware of when you complain, then you have the awareness, then, oh, okay, what can I do? What one of these three things can I do to make the situation better for me? So then you have a place to stand on, a balanced place to stand on to take action. And so doing anything other than these three things really it's not helpful. So complaining, being resentful, pouting, worrying, depressing, all of that are things that aren't going to get you ultimately what you want. And what do we want? We all want what we want, right? So being able to behave in a way where we can actually put ourselves in a position to maybe get what we want. And so these are ways to change that behavior. So I have a video here that I want to show you guys. It's only about 5 minutes long. So John Kabat-Zinn is someone that's sort of been kind of a mentor for me in the way that I conceptualize the work that I do. And really what he's talking about is thinking. So thinking is really what can get us into trouble, right? Thinking is great because we are evolved, we're the highest level of the food chain, And thinking allows us to do a lot of things, but also thinking can also be a way that really enables us to get in our own way and to actually, cause our own obstacles. So let's watch this little short 5-minute video, and then we will come back from that. I think, Nikolai, are you gonna put that up?
Sure, give me a second.
Okay.
It doesn't take long when you start to develop a practice of mindfulness before you realize that we are virtually continually bombarded by thoughts. They're like weather patterns in the mind. And there are sometimes nice, clear, sunny days, but there are an awful lot of cloudy days, tumultuous days, rainy days, turbulent, stormy weather. And again, the challenge is, how are we to be in relationship to all of that stuff that's driving our lives and our narrative of who I am? And so when you get in touch with what awareness really is, then the first thing you realize is that those thoughts are not me, and they're not mine. They're just like weather patterns. They're impersonal weather patterns in the mind. So then you can observe them like a scientist. Like, what is the nature of this thought? Where does it come from? I mean, and they come like bullets, fired out of a machine gun. They're very, very fast, so to speak. That's quite a militaristic image. But, another way is bubbles coming off the bottom of a pot of boiling water. If you've ever watched a pot of boiling water, say a glass pot, the bubbles tend to nucleate at the bottom, and then they go through the water and they go poof at the surface. So the thoughts are very similar, and that's where I use, and other people often use this term, the thoughts self-liberate. You don't have to get rid of them. People misunderstand meditation as, oh, I just sweep all my thoughts away and then I'm in this like nirvana. What you'll get by trying to sweep all your thoughts away is a headache at the most, because there's no way to sweep your thoughts away. They will get you every time. And then you can have millions of thoughts about mindfulness and meditation, and those are just thoughts too. They're not meditating. But when you see that you're not your thoughts, then you can watch them in this kind of impersonal, more sort of, if you will, observing way, with kindness, with self-compassion, because a lot of them are heavily loaded with negative emotion. And you can see that if you don't touch them, if you don't do anything with them, if you don't get caught in them, they self-liberate naturally in awareness. The awareness, it's like touching a soap bubble. It's fun for kids and fun for adults too. Soap bubble, and you touch it and it just goes poof. So I love that image. Like the thought is the soap bubble, and the emotion too, that's, valencing the thought. And you don't need to do anything with it, because your awareness, it's not even a finger, it's not corporeal. The awareness, just the embracing of it or the arising of it, like in the sky, it goes poof all by itself. And don't take my word for it. This is something that when you sit down and you begin to watch, you'll see this is not rocket science. You don't have to sit in a cave for 30 years to have that kind of experience. All you need to do is, in some sense, get out of your own way. Now, I'm not saying that's easy. That's really hard. But if you can have moments when you get out of your own way, then you'll see that a lot of the stuff that we get so caught up in, it's like, it's a mirage. And that doesn't mean that the thoughts aren't valuable. I mean, I think it was Einstein who said, if you have one or two really good thoughts in a lifetime, you're ahead of the curve. Paraphrasing. So most of our thoughts are actually kind of mundane or imprisoning, But thinking is a very, very, I mean, it drives imagination, it drives creativity. So maybe we need to just create a bigger arena for our thoughts and watch how they not only self-liberate, but also inform each other in some sense. And then all of a sudden you see something that no one in the history of humanity has seen before. And you apprehend it because you're making something is being revealed to you. I won't say you're making the connection, but somehow a connection gets made, and that's called an insight. And you're going to have profound insights. I mean, science is, sort of storied, wonderful stories of eureka moments, insight, and it's usually not by driving thinking and banging your head against the wall. It's when you've thought as much as you've gone as far as thought can take you. And then you rest in awareness. Maybe sometimes it's in sleep, or you wake up out of a sleep and then,
Thanks, Nikolai. So yeah, I really like what he's talking about there in terms of our thinking, because that's what we can control. That's what we can't control all the stuff that's going on around us. World War III could be going on right now, and if we have the ability to maintain our own inner balance, then we can develop the kind of our own peace that we want. So so the thinking part. So let me get back to my slide here. Okay, so don't mistake your thoughts about reality for reality. So if you can look at this for yourself. What is your reality comprised of? For most people, I would say our reality is comprised predominantly of the contents of our mind, with the in addition to our physical appearance. So what we're thinking and how we look is often what dominates our time that we're awake. But really, so what we're talking about is going from a reality that's based on thinking, and what John just talked about, thinking isn't real. Thoughts aren't real. Thoughts are just things that we generate in our mind, but they're not real things. But we make them real. If we live in this thought-based reality, then we create scenarios and we create stories and narratives about ourselves and our lives and what's going on around us that may be very, very different from what the actual reality is. So the practice, generally mindfulness would be the word, but it's moving from a thought-based reality to an experience-based reality. So the only thing that's actually real in our lives is what's happening right now. Like you listening to me talking to you. This is the only thing that's actually real in our lives. Anything other than this right now is either something that happened in the past, which isn't real. It was real at one time, but now it only exists as a memory. Or if you go the other way, it's in the future, and the future is something that doesn't exist either. So we're talking about two areas of experience that are concepts. They're not real. But if you look at how much time we spend in our minds living in those areas, living in the past, ruminating about, oh, how did that go wrong? That wasn't my fault, or who's to blame, or just turning things over and over in your head about the past. That's a blueprint for depression. Or if you go the other way, you spend your time thinking about the future and what could go wrong and what if, and this and that. Well, then that's a blueprint for anxiety. So, I mean, it's the understanding that both of these two areas are not real. The past is not real. The future is not real. What we think of as the future will eventually be another right now moment. But what we think of as the future, it's a concept. It isn't real. So the practice is moving into the awareness, the alertness of when you're in thought-based reality. 2, what am I experiencing right now? What are my eyes seeing? What are my ears hearing? What am I, what's actually happening right now? Because right now is actually the only time you're ever alive. You're only alive right now. You can only experience love right now. You can only experience happiness right now. You can't, this is it. This is what we got. So if we find that we're living most of the time in these other areas, past and future, then we end up living our lives in a way that's almost like sleepwalking. So we're awake and my eyes are open and I'm moving around, but I'm only sort of aware enough of the present moment to not bump into furniture, for example. Other than that, I'm in my head and I'm walking around and I may even be talking to someone. My lips are moving and my eyes are open, but my mind is totally someplace else. Then we go through our lives, we go on autopilot. And without the awareness of doing that, we miss all the things in between. If I'm on autopilot and I'm worrying about work and next week and what I have to do or what's wrong, or and I'm holding my 8-month-old son, guess what I'm missing? The little smile that he gives me when I wink at him. I'm missing all those things. And so if you sum total that over the life of a person, of all of those things we miss because we're on autopilot and out to lunch, then we're missing our own lives. And so and that's the real tragedy, is going through our lives on autopilot and missing everything right in front of us because we thought everything else was so much more important. I just need that one more thing to be okay. That one more thing, I'm gonna finally be okay. And then again, that's the illusion. We actually have it all right now. So I would guess that most of us out there don't have to worry about having a roof over our head, don't have to worry about putting food on the table, don't have to worry about those basic needs. And if you do, that's definitely a concern as well. But most of us probably don't have those worries. So we actually have everything that we need, despite what our head is telling us that we need to have in order to be okay. I have a good book that I'm going to recommend at the end, and he talks about the narrator. He talks about the narrator in our head, that we all have this narrator in our head that's that's judging and labeling, and I like this and I don't like this, like that, and this is good and this is bad, and blah 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 blah. He explains it in a way that I think is pretty accurate. It's like if you watch a football game or something, and you have the play-by-play commentators that are describing the plays for you as you're watching it. We have that own kind of thing in our head. And if we're not aware that voice in our head is actually not a healthy thing, and we actually listen to this voice in our head, then it can end up taking us down roads that can be really distressful. So noticing where our reality is based, and noticing that narrator in the head, what it says to us. Because if we listen to that narrator in the head that says, "Oh, I'm too, whatever. I'm too big. I'm too small. I'm too this. I'm too that." Those stories can ultimately become self-fulfilling prophecies. If we engage them enough. So this is a, I'm not sure how many of you all have seen this before, but I like to use this picture in terms of choosing our perspective. So up to now, what we're really talking about is having the ability to choose how we want to think, to choose where we're going to put our awareness, and to choose to engage with the world in a way that we want to. And so I like to use this one with the students. I don't know if you all can see the two different faces there. Oops. There's the young woman and the older woman. I don't know. Let's see here. I can't. I can't see my chat on here with this, but anyways, so there's the older woman and the younger woman and the older woman, and once you see them both, you can't not see them again. But then you have the perspective, you have the choice to choose whichever perspective you choose, and that's up to you. So yeah, I like this one. So this was a study that I thought was interesting as well, for the parents, well, for us as well. This was a study done by Stanford in 2010. They followed 1,000 people from birth to age 32. What they wanted to find out in the study was, what were the personality traits that were the strongest predictors of future success? So what personality traits were the strongest predictors of health, of substance use dependence or not, of financial success, career success, and criminal offending outcomes? So they wanted to find out, of all these 1,000 people, which were the traits that really signified, were predictors that these people were going to be successful in life. And it wasn't, family connections. It wasn't even IQ, objective IQ. It was number one predictor of future success is self-control. Having self-control out of those 1,000 people was the number one predictor, of positive outcomes. And so if you think of in your own life, areas where you struggled, see if there was an issue of self-control in some way that you didn't have, which contributed to the outcome that was the poor outcome. I definitely can see that for myself. So number one, self-control. If we can teach our kids self-control, to manage themselves, to say no, even though they really, really might want to do something, but they know it's not good for them, that's a great skill. So number one, self-control. Number two, resilience. Being able to pick yourself back up when things don't go your way. The ability to carry on and not get caught up in the ruminating and the depressing and the blaming and all of that. To be able to pick yourself up and do it again. So imagine like little babies, for example, before they have the ability, before they develop this ego and this self-consciousness, imagine if babies had ego and self-consciousness and they're learning to walk, and every time they got up and fell down and people laughed, that they took that personally. And they said, this whole walking thing, people are laughing at me and it's very embarrassing, so I'm just gonna quit. Babies don't do that. Babies are very resilient. They get up and they keep trying and trying and trying. And so that's really a great skill to teach our kids. But having said that, what do we have to allow, and this is hard for some parents, understandably so, what do we have to allow them to do in order for them to build resilience? We have to let them fail. We have to allow them to fail so that we can help them get back up. And that's very hard for some parents, because they don't want to, they don't understand that there is a very valuable lesson in the failure. And I talk to parents that if kids are going to learn this lesson, it's better for them to learn it now than later on. It's better for them to learn the lesson of failing Spanish because they didn't do the work freshman year of high school than it is freshman year of college. So freshman year of high school, they can recover from that grade-wise, and it's going to be less disruptive than if they fall on their face and crater in college. So allowing our kids to learn those lessons, as hard as it may be. I remember a situation with a parent that I was talking to, and she was very angry at her son because she would stay up until 3 o'clock in the morning doing his homework with him so that he would get a good grade. And I asked her, and I said, why are you doing that? And she's like, well, what do you mean? I said, well, why are you staying up with him? Why aren't you letting him do it? Well, if he does it, then he's going to fail. And so, it's very hard to let that go for some people, but just know that there is very valuable lesson in failure. So I just got a few more slides here, guys, about some of the things that I was thinking about when I put this, when I was putting this together. Some things that were very helpful for me. So for our kids, we got self-control, we got resilience. For them and for us, something that I've had to learn over the years is to stop taking things so personally. Things are not happening to me, they're just happening. And I had to learn this lesson many times in my life, that things that would happen around me, I would take them so personally, like someone is doing it to me. And it just turns out that they're just doing it because that's who they are. That's what they do. So I happen to be the person in front of them at that moment. But whether it's me or someone else, those same things are probably still happening. So I can't take things so personally and think that they're about me. Like everything's not about me. And I think one of the best examples of this that I can think of is road rage. I mean, imagine someone honks at you and is screaming at you and giving you the finger and yelling at you for cutting them off or something, and then I get so upset about it to the point where I'm screaming and yelling and like I don't know him and he doesn't know me. So if I'm getting upset about some guy that doesn't even know me, then it's not about the driving. It's about some unresolved issues that I'm dealing with that I haven't dealt with. So that's also a red flag for me, that like when I start getting irritated by things or getting short with people, I need to take a look at that, because there's something that I'm not dealing with that's going on that is now coming out in other ways. I like this one. Who doesn't need a little help from Jack Sparrow every now and then? The problem's not the problem. The problem is my attitude about the problem. This one's been very very helpful for me over the years, and especially in the work that I do clinically with clients. And that's one of the things that I often say is that the problem's not the problem. Whatever brought you in here into my office today is not the problem. The problem is how you go about solving your problems. That's the problem. So, very often someone will come in and, he's doing this and she's doing that, or, very specific things for discussion. But really, it's not that actual thing that's the problem. It's the way you're dealing with that thing. And so, that comes back to what we've talked about here, perspective. Right? We have the freedom and the choice to choose our perspective. And this was probably, when I read that book, the Frankel book, this quote was probably the one that I that really stuck with me. Man's Search for Meaning. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Our power to choose our response, that's choice. Between stimulus and response, that's where we have choice. And so, what we're seeing now out on the news and cities all over America is there's very little space between stimulus and response. People are very angry and they're acting on emotion. And so that's another popular theme that I talk to when I talk with students, and it's this right here. It's reacting versus responding. So when I react on emotion. Something happens, it upsets me, I get angry, whatever, and then I immediately have a response based on that reaction. And most of the time, especially if it's something I'm upset about, that instant reactive response is not helpful, and actually it usually makes things worse. So being able to learn that, whoa, hold on, wait a minute, I have a choice in how I'm going to handle the situation. I can react on emotion and do something very quickly that's probably not going to get me closer to what I want. It's probably going to get me farther away from what I want. Or I can respond to the situation. And so what does that mean? Responding just means, whoa, I put some space, like that Viktor Frankl said in that quote, I put some space between what just happened and what I'm going to do. In that space, it gives me time to take in other perspectives. It gives me time to calm down. It gives me time to make a plan for what action I need to take to get what I want. And so this is a very common thing that I have with students when something happens. And I'll say, okay, did you react or respond? And it becomes kind of a funny thing. I reacted. So how would that have been different if you responded instead of reacted? And so very helpful way to just get more control of ourselves. So I just have a couple of the last slide here, really. And I already talked about this, but complaining is very much a victim mentality. So when I complain, I'm making myself a victim. And be rad. Remember what rad is? Remove yourself, accept, or do something. So when I complain and I don't take action to make it better for myself, I'm just being a victim of a circumstance. And someone that lives, that develops that style for themselves of complaining and then not doing anything, that can become kind of hardwired in someone's personality. And when that happens, the ego is very much wants to defend itself. And so if we've developed a kind of personality style where I complain and I'm kind of a victim, then any opportunity for yourself to work through that or to improve on that will be immediately destroyed by your ego, because your ego wants to keep you in that place. So being really, really, really hyper aware of complaining and worrying, those are really big things. And a couple of books I wanted to share with you guys that have been really helpful for me. If you've got time to read and you're interested in learning more about some of the things that I talked about today, these are like my textbooks. The Power of Now, first of all, Eckhart Tolle, and the follow-up to that was this one, A New Earth. And this is very much about, this one's more about recognizing our thinking patterns and how we develop these unhealthy thinking patterns. This one's more about our ego mechanics and how our ego keeps us stuck. Really, really interesting stuff. And another one that I thought was awesome and highly, highly recommend it. It's this one called The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. And this one talks more specifically about the narrator in the head. He goes really into to real detail about how that operates in our lives, how the narrator in our head basically runs our lives. And really, really awesome book. He's got a great story too, his own personal story. If you want to read more about that. Let's see. What else do I have? Oh, I'm a little bit over too, guys. I'm 5:06. I'm sorry. This was only supposed to be an hour. I don't know if anyone has any questions about anything. Feel free to jump in or chat. But that is all that I have today. Well, if nobody has anything that they want to jump in on, thanks very much for joining today. Had a great time. This is some of my favorite stuff to talk about with you guys. If you enjoyed the John Kabat-Zinn that clip, he's got a lot of talks online that really, really interesting to me. So if that's it, I think Nikolai is going to jump back on here.
Sure, yeah. So thank you, Patrick, and thank you all for your participation or listening ear for the Council on Recovery's conversations on addiction, recovery, and family, from our living room to yours. In 2 weeks, we will be back to discuss the trauma addiction connection. The Council on Recovery continues to provide treatment services via telehealth, including assessments, individual, group, and family therapy, as well as intensive outpatient treatment. In the course of this conversation, you may have recognized that you or someone you know needs help. Start here at the Council by calling 713-914-0556. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please consider making a donation to the Council on Recovery. Your support helps us continue our service to the community during the coronavirus outbreak in the form of CEU events, remote clinical services, remote community education, and more. Thanks all.
Yeah, the Untethered Soul by Michael Singer is the name of that last book.